All right, Buddhism. I'm messing with you, but it's an extract from like. So I really enjoy religion in the literary sense, and especially if you consider the stories of old to be the guidelines of people in general. And every generation, every culture kind of has its own interpretation of the world. They all harmonize among like central parts. Uh, it's funny because the way we're taught is a less personal way. We are expected to explore life on our own. And I think parents kind of get lazy when they don't really just allow us to explore our opinions at a young age. And here, that could be a reflection of my own tragedy. But it's not a tragic thing. It's more okay, like society, right? I was raised a certain kind of way towards society, and it's not really because I did anything wrong. It's because the norms of society that started distinguishing between good people and not good people became like norms of respect, politeness, attitude, the way to speak. So instead of being taught how speaking matters, I was forced to kind of like speak a certain kind of way, which naturally I resisted like fucking crazy, and till this day, man, I have all these issues. Like just last week, 4 days ago on Christmas Eve, one of those big dramatic moments where I was like, my guy, you cannot just you cannot just want me to be a certain kind of way so you can feel good. And that was an issue between me and like family. But anyways, the reason I started with Buddhism is because like the Buddhist is saying like life is suffering, right? And yes, if you look at life, it is definitely there's suffering through you, suffering through everyone, and suffering through everything. There's there's a hint of suffering. It's one of those like most of the actual tabkhat, what do you call tabkhat? Once meals. Most of the meals have kind of salt, pepper, some form of spice, maybe garlic, some onions. Like the majority of meals kind of have standardized ingredients. And I think one of the main ingredients of life is suffering. But I really think suffering is a man made thing. If you look at animals, man, like lost his leg, a dog lost his leg, the next day he's walking because he wants to find food. Uh, they don't hesitate, right? Other beings around us, with all the feelings they have, they accept life for how it is and they continue moving on. But for us, we labeled it suffering. But then I was looking at it as like life is suffering. Our destiny is to pass through life. We are destined to pass through, which kind of means like we are deciding the suffering that we get. We are deciding the suffering to engage with. Like right now, there's a fucking genocide happening by the same people who claimed to be like who were victims of genocide a couple of decades ago. And what do? Right? There's nothing you can do. That's not really suffering that I'm able to kind of like engage with, or I really don't think I should. I think resistance happens from a personal level going out. But then if you look at my suffering and I go like, okay, so what are the issues that I'm having? And they seem trivial, but yet these are more personal to me than the way the world operates on its own. And ultimately, whether regardless of how I approach things, I am going to be I am going to experience different kinds and different levels of suffering around me or in me. But our job is what? To go through. Our destiny is to live, and if anything, we're destined to die. It reminds me of a quote like, nobody ever left the war. The war, nobody who ever left the war was alive, because everyone who left the war actually died in it. I forgot if that's how it's said, I probably butchered it. The idea behind it is death is the beautiful truth that releases us from the suffering. But until then, how do we choose to approach everything around us? And how do we choose to approach what we would want to label some kind of way? All right, mentioning the shitty stuff that's happening on the other side of my country, man, kind of like bummed me out a bit. But again, I could choose to be one of those people that kind of like just gets frustrated all day. Or I could actually choose to build more, to create more, to allow people that live more and exist more. And it doesn't make sense. I get it. But the reality is, feeling helpless sucks, and yelling never solved any problem. And again, yelling through any form, violence through any form, never solved suffering. It never did. I'm sorry. In fact, if anything, the more we engage in the conversation of suffering, the more we allow it to happen. We need to take action, and normally, action towards the suffering itself allows suffering to resist us. If you have an issue and the first thing you do is you go and you try to fix it, you're fixing it with the same person that created that issue mainly, that manifested that issue, that allowed that issue to be a thing. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like the way you are right now allowed for something to be labeled suffering. And to go deal with it, the first thing you have to do is change, evolve, grow, surpass the self that you are right now that allowed that thing to exist within your environment. And it's simple, it's not about control, it's about taking charge. The more you're taking charge of your own self, the less things that could actually approach you or engage with you would exist around you. Because like the rich, the wealthy, the happy, the poor, the sad, the miserable, the fast, the slow, the big, the small, we all go through life the exact same way. Our issues you affect the issues we have bring out the same feelings. The issues we have are trigger the same emotions. We kind of have the same bodies. We like no, we exist within a certain constant, which is basically the human realm. That's what we share with everyone. And ultimately, how we are dictates what are the things that make us suffer and what are the things that kind of like remove that out of the equation. So if our destiny is just to pass through life, then wouldn't it make sense for us to pass through on our own terms instead of allowing things to kind of like jump on us? If something is causing suffering for us or making us feel some form of suffering, doesn't it make more sense for us to handle how we deal with the suffering in order for if it happens again, it doesn't? Because it's all in our own mind. The rest of life on this planet doesn't consider doesn't consider suffering the way humans do. They have feelings, they engage with everything, but ultimately they're able to surpass anything in order for them to stay alive. Slowly, slowly, I really think we're destined to die. If anything, man, everything about life is designed to kill us, but everything about us is designed to survive. So, if the Buddhists say life is suffering, then I think that's the challenge life gave us in order for us not to die by our own hands. The clinginess we have to life is the courage that's needed for us to day in and day out challenge new forms of suffering by improving ourselves, growing, and being stronger for us and everything and everyone around us. It can't be helped. It's either that or we're not really alive, are we? Just surviving. Oof, that ended up in a very dark place. But we are talking about suffering. All right, babies. Life, yeah? You can't help but see how fascinating everything around you is. And people sometimes they just surprise you, and other times they're exactly how you expect. Ah, there's an anime quote I once read. I don't believe in humanity, but I believe in the potential of humanity. Maybe we should be our own potential, man. We should be humanity's potential, my dad. Yalla later, man. It's too deep for the fourth video of the day. Bye.